brothers and sisters. A lot of you, long time no see. But thank you for coming. We really do enjoy seeing your faces here. Anyway, you are in for a good treat. Tonight's topic is prison ministry, particularly Kairos and Kairos Torch. We are very thrilled to share this wonderful program to the Filipino Cursillo community because this is like a spin-off of Cursillo. We basically bring the Cursillo to the incarcerated. So we invited two wonderful gentlemen from our Kairos Torch, Tom Chapman and Bob Maselli, who are very excited to inform us of their great program for the incarcerated. Mr. Tom Chapman has worked for Georgia Pacific from college for over 20 years, and he at one point owned his own lumber company. He has an MBA, Master's in Spiritual Psychology. He is married to Joe Chapman, who is really the person responsible for how I got started with Kairos. And they have 2 children and 4 grandchildren. Tom made a very life-changing Cursillo weekend in 1975, and I'm going to have him share that. He taught in the Cursillo Leaders School, such as ours, School of Leaders, for the Catholic Cursillo community in the Diocese of Oakland. He has been fully committed and involved in Kairos prison ministry for 30 years. He was the state chair for Kairos in California for 6 years and was instrumental in starting Kairos in 8 prisons during his chairmanship. He was a part of the committee that designed the Torch Ministry, an international mentor trainer for Kairos Torch. And finally, he is the first rector, as we call them, the leader of the very first Torch program here in California at Chad Youth Correctional Facility in Stockton. Pretty much where Brother Willie and Sister Annie and Jeffrey, I see you. We did that torch, and we will have our weekend this weekend. But Tom will introduce Bob subsequently during the talk. So let's give Tom a big welcome.
Decaloris.
Decaloris.
I knew y'all knew how to say that. I don't need this, I don't think. So, back about, well, twice it's happened in my life. Well, maybe when I got married too, but I'll explain that. 1975, I was fishing in Monterey Bay with some guys, and they said, you know what? Your wife really wants to go to a special retreat weekend called a Cursillo. The catch is, we're catching something? The catch is, you have to go first. And I'm 2.5 miles from shore, and I don't want to go. So I said, so what's my options? He said, well, you could swim or you could go. I went. And then it was interesting, the reading talked about an angel that you might miss. And a fellow by the name of Dick Angel, who's in the Presbyterian Cursillo here in the East Bay, started bugging me in 1984, and he said, you know, we got this prison ministry program called Kairos. And we just went to Florida, observed a weekend, and man, are we juiced, and we have a contract with the Federal Correctional Institution, and we want you to be on our team. And I looked and said, who? Not me. I don't want to go. So here we go. The Lord said, go. And I said, who, me? And he said, yes, you. And I said, but I'm not ready yet. And there's company coming, and you can't leave the kids. And you know there's no one to take my place. And he said, you're stalling. Again, the Lord said, go. And I said, but I don't want to. And he said, I didn't ask if you wanted to. And I said, listen, I'm not the kind of person to get involved in controversy. Besides, my family won't like it. And what will my neighbors think? And the Lord said, baloney. And yet a third time, the Lord said, go. And I said, do I have to? And he said, do you love me? And I said, look, I'm scared. People are going to hate me and cut me up into little pieces. I can't take it all by myself. And he said, where do you think I'll be? And the Lord said, go. And I sighed. Here I am. Send me. I have copies of this if anybody wants them. So, this thing called Kairos Prison Ministry started in 1975 in a prison in Florida, Rayford Correctional Institution. And on the first weekend that these 9 old men put together, based on, guess what, Curcio, they were actually asked a little later by the National Secretariat out of Dallas to change the name, stop using the words, because they were afraid. So they did, and they called it Kairos Prison Ministry. Rayford Correctional has been holding weekends 2 a year, every year since 1975. A team of men go in there once a month to have an Ultrea reunion, we call it. And they have brought more cookies into that prison, probably enough to fill this room top to bottom and maybe 4 just like it. They started a cookie ministry because the first men who went to the first Kairos went back to their cells and got beat up. Because they came to the weekend and ate all this great food and didn't bring any back. So Kairos started a cookie ministry. And it's been used basically throughout the world. We have the same format. In there it's a 3.5-day weekend. They start on a Thursday, they end on the Sunday. They have a closing ceremony. They have talks. They have discussion. They have prayer. They have a cook team that's on their knees the whole time. They pray for their speakers just like you do. A lot of things are very, very similar. The only difference is it's really weird. Every person that comes on the weekend all dresses the same way. I don't understand it. It's all blue stuff and a pair of flip-flops that's been worn by 1,000 guys before them. So that's what happens on a Kairos. It takes a lot of people to make Kairos work. The one thing that we do that's rather interesting on Kairos is not only the team, but the community gets the opportunity, the blessing to write letters to the inmates. Nothing personal. You're not giving them your social security number. You're not giving them your home phone number. You're basically saying, God loves you. And you say it however you got to say it. The first weekend we held in California, every man, it was actually, we did a little strange. We had a women's weekend first. Guess what? It was a co-ed prison. How strange is that? But only the feds could do that, right? So the women's weekend was held in September. The men's weekend was held in October. Every one of those inmates got over 1,000 letters. We had to give them a shopping bag full of letters. And they literally did not want to read them because they were afraid they were going to do what? What I've already done here tonight. Cry. And you don't want to do that in front of the fellow inmates because, you know, then you're weak or whatever. So that's the men's weekend. The women's weekend for Kairos inside prisons, and Kairos is in 4 different places. They're in women's prisons, they're in men's prisons. They have a program, what I'll tell you about also, called Kairos Outside, which is for women who have a family member or loved one who is incarcerated. And 1 out of 100 people in our country today, he consoled us how bad it was. 1 out of 100 people in this country know somebody who has somebody in prison or jail. In this room, probably 5 or 6 know somebody who is in prison or jail. So the women's prison, the women's facilities, is done exactly the same way. 3.5 days. The team of women go in. They listen, listen, love, love, which is a motto for Kairos. Listen, listen, love, love. We don't judge anybody for who they are, what they've done. We don't want to know. I don't want to know. We just let them talk. We help them to engage. The talks are very uplifting. They're kind of like the Cursillo talks, but they've been changed to meet the environment. We have music, we have food in some places we don't. Some places we have to purchase the food, like the federal institutions, you have to purchase the food, and it costs you $1.25 for the weekend. And that's all the meals. So you can only imagine how wonderful it is not. By the way, yours is awesome tonight. So that's the men's weekend, that's the women's weekend. Kairos Inside, Kairos Outside. Kairos in California is now in 17 institutions. There are 30 in this state. 17 institutions. In this just local area, there is San Quentin, which everybody's kind of heard of. There is California Men's in Vacaville, CMF Vacaville. There is Folsom's maximum security prison, which is called California State Prison, Sacramento. Those are the ones that we're in right here. A group has just been formed to go into Soledad, down below Salinas. We're scattered all the way down through the valley, clear almost to the Mexican border. In one of the prisons, R.J. Donovan in San Diego, they have 3 weekends at the same time, one in each of 3 yards. So they have 90 plus, almost over 100 volunteers going in. These folks are writing letters. They're all crippled up from writing letters, believe me. But they are writing letters for all of those people. They just finished holding their 100th weekend at that location. The other one that really holds my heart, because my wife actually, Joe Chapman, actually started this weekend right after the first Kairos at San Quentin in 1989. The chaplain came to her and said, you know, this is really great for the guys, but what do we do about the families? And at that time they had a family council. So the men were locked up, their wives, sisters, moms, whatever, were on a council to kind of help get them ready for coming home. And so she said, well, geez, I guess we could design a weekend. And she did. She talked to a lot of people all over the country. She came up with a combination of Cursillo, Walk to Emmaus, Kairos, and designed something called Kairos Outside. That was in 1990. The very first weekend was held in California, and it was held at San Quentin, in the area of San Quentin. It's now in 27 states and 7 countries. Kairos is in 360 prisons in the United States alone, and 9 countries. The Pray for Peru, they're hoping to get into Peru and get something going there. They're in Honduras, they're in Nicaragua, they're in Costa Rica. I've been blessed to go to some in all of those places. I carry great bags for my wife. When she goes, I can carry the bags. But I have been blessed to train for Torch. We helped write that program in 1999. And I have trained people in South Africa, in Australia, in England, and even in, God forbid, Oklahoma. But really, we have a lot of great things going on in Kairos. Angels, what does that say? Angels go where I fear to tread. I don't fear to tread. I have been in some of the most difficult prisons almost in the world, and I am totally convinced that if anything, nothing's ever happened, by the way, but if anything ever happened, I would have a cordon of Kairos inmates standing around me, keeping everything and everybody else back. They are so pleased to have us come in. I've seen men get up after a Kairos weekend and say, you know what, this is the first visits I've had, and I've been here 14 years and never had a visit. In fact, one of our young men told me the other day he's been there 7 years and never had a visit. Both his mother and father are in prison. So this is kind of what happens. It's crazy business, let me tell you. It's really interesting. And it really draws your heartstrings out. I can say that Kairos Outside has flowers at dawn. Gee, what would that be? What do you think? Mañanitas? Yeah, right, they do. And you know what? The Filipino Cursil community has shown up for that and sang for them and watched them leak everywhere. There's somebody lost the faucet washers in their eyes and they just started leaking. I don't know what it was. Makes me leak every time I see it. But that is an incredible weekend. It's 2.5 days and it's women ministering to women. A great need for women to do that ministry. And yet, here it is, they just did their 65th or 66th weekend, last weekend in California, which is the oldest one in the country, by the way. And 3/4 of the women who lead the weekend are former guests. Former guests, and that's what it's designed to do. It's designed to bring these women together, to guide them, strengthen them, give them the opportunity to lead themselves and pull themselves out of the bondage of what's going on, because the people who have people inside are doing time right along with their loved one. There have been women turned away, families turned away from churches. Well, her son did this, her brother did that, her father did this. I mean, those kinds of things actually happen, and it's just, it makes me sad because they're not following the reading, are they? We're called to love one another. We're called to love other people. We're called to be a support for those who can't do it, to help the sick, to feed the poor, all of those things. And prison is just another place to do it. So who's in there? Well, the best explanation I've ever heard came from the director of the Department of Corrections in Georgia. He was at a conference. He was speaking to Kairos. There were 350 Kairos volunteers from all over the world there. And he said, you know, you all fill a real good service for us because we can't rehabilitate anybody. God can. We can. And he said, there's a couple, 3 kinds of people in prison. There's some in there we are really, really, really scared of, and we're never going to let them out because they're a danger to themselves and other people. Said, you'll never see those people when you do your Kairos. Don't say never, because I'll tell you that in a second. He said, most of the rest of them, we're just a little mad at. And we want them to do better and get out and stay out. You know, to really stay away. Kairos is designed to build Christian community inside prison, and to build Christian community amongst women who have somebody who's in prison, and to build Christian community and mentor young people who are incarcerated. That's what the design is. That's what's happening. And it's really interesting to see him say there's some of those people you're going to minister, you're never going to minister to, you're never going to see them. Kairos has done, to my knowledge, at least 2 on death row. Now, there's somebody who's never getting out. There's somebody who basically hardly ever gets out of his cell, his or her cell. And yet Kairos went in there. They actually did a weekend for one guy who was scheduled to die within about 2 months. And they figured, you know, here's his shot. We got a group of 10 men who are willing to go in there and pray with him for 3.5 days. And they think, because it happened, they think he ain't looking up, he's looking down. So it's just something that we, you know, the people who do this have a great heart for it. You all have a great heart for a variety of different things. May not be for everybody, but it's not nearly as scary as one might think. I was scared to death. I am not kidding you. Dick Angel had to call me 10 times. The guy bugged me to death, and he said, just come to a team meeting, you'll love it. I did. I was hooked. It was done. Kairos nationwide, worldwide, does kind of the same process. We have about 36 hours of training. In California, we do as much, if not more, than most places because we really believe that to send you in prepared is the best way to go. So we have and we really build a community. So when we walk into that prison, we've had inmates tell us, there's something different about you people. You glow when you come in here. We don't understand it, but we want some of that. And so much so that some of the inmates have coined phrases that are amazing. We were just talking about the other day, one of the guys at Folsom, some guys were acting up a little bit that were in the Kairos community inside, and this guy got up, great big Native American guy, and he's pointing to somebody across the room and says, you are the worst one. But he said, you can't come in here and pray on a Sunday and then go out and pray on your brothers in the yard the rest of the week. P-R-A-Y versus P-R-E-Y. So they really get it, and they take responsibility for who they are and what they do, and almost without a man. Has anybody seen Shawshank Redemption?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, remember when he's walking down the beach with the boat?
Yes.
I know at least 100 guys I'd like to see walking down that beach. I really do. So that's Kairos Outside, Kairos Inside for men and women, Kairos Outside for women who have an incarcerated family member. And my good friend and brother by another mother, Bob Maselli, will come on up and tell you about Torch, because guess what? Tag, he's it. He's the leader for the next Torch. That's going to happen at the end of April and the first day of May. And Bob I've known for about 30 years. We met at, guess what? Cursillo School. His table, we started a group reunion out of that bunch, and we've been meeting every week since then.
Wow.
Every week.
Every week. Every week. And I'm not tired of him yet. He's still kind of fun. I'm a little jealous, though. He's got a little more hair than I do.
Don't talk about that.
So, Bob, why don't you come on up and tell them about Kairos Torch and what we have going on over in Stockton.
I always hate to speak after him. He's a hard act to follow. But I just want to thank you for allowing us to be here and speak with you. I can remember my Cursillo that I made in February of 1980 at Holy Redeemer Center here in Oakland. And the door opened on Sunday morning when we were eating breakfast, and a bunch of people came in and started singing, and I just looked at these angelic faces with these wonderful smiles, and I was sure I was the only one crying in the room. You know, I was trying to hide, blot my tears, and then I talked to everybody else, and they were all doing the same thing. You're just like angels when you come in and sing. I know you said you haven't done as much outreach, but boy, you appreciate it when you come in. I'll tell you, nothing like it. Yeah, I'm going to just talk to you about one of the ministries within the umbrella of Kairos, and that's Kairos Torch. It's held in Stockton at the institution's called Chadarian, but nobody can pronounce it or spell it, so we just call it Chad. The young men that we minister to most of them have been prosecuted as juveniles. Some actually, though they are under 18, have been prosecuted as adults. As adults, I should say. So we've had a young man as young as 15 come to our weekend, and then 23 is, well, it depends when you're prosecuted, I think, but 23 is generally the age at which they get released, or they end up going to state prison, or in some fashion they leave the institution. We are on our third Torch weekend. We had two last year, and then we go in this Friday for our third Torch. And Tom gave you a little preview of it. It's very much like a Cursillo weekend. Ours is only 2.5 days with the young men. And again, the talks are tailored to their circumstance, their age. We have table families, we have table leaders, we have a lot of music. We have some activities just to burn off some energy with them. I tell you what, you see these guys, and they become little kids once again when they got a potato between their legs and having to race to the wall. trying to pass a hula hoop without letting go of your hands. It's a lot of fun. And so we all know that the song and the laughter helps to open the heart too. And so we do all of that on the weekend. So we go in on a Friday. They come in around dinner time, maybe what, 5:30, 6?
5:30.
Yeah. And when they come in, every person on the team is assigned to a young man who comes in on that weekend. And we act as what we call a guide on the weekend. We meet with them individually 4 different times during the weekend. That's apart from their table discussion. So when they come in, they call the young man's name who I'm going to guide, and I go introduce myself. I have a name tag that I hand him. Then I go take him to a table, get him some pizza, and we sit down and we just talk. And then I introduce him to the whole community. And it's kind of a low-key night. We actually have what we call a talk. It's a video presentation of the creation of God, and then interspersed with all of that lovely creation we see are the candidates who are making the weekend. Their faces comes on, and they love seeing themselves there. So we send them off to bed, and then we start really digging in come Saturday morning. We have several talks, and it proceeds very much like a Cursillo. We end with a closing ceremony where we invite people from the outside to come in and experience the closing ceremony. And that is just the beginning of the ministry. It's opening a door, it's building a little bit of trust, maybe softening the heart a little bit. And then I think what is the real heart of our ministry is after the weekend is done, we take the first week off, but starting that Monday or Thursday, a week after the conclusion, we begin to mentor them, and the team members commit to a 6-month period of one-on-one mentoring for an hour a week with these young men. So I would have a young man assigned to me, and I would become his mentor, and I'd go in on Thursdays and meet with him from 5 until 6. Again, as Tom said, we have a book that's a curriculum, so you don't have to worry about what do I talk about with this young man. We have a curriculum you follow. It gets the ball rolling. And really the progression, it starts very slowly, because though we've experienced a weekend with them, their lives have very little trust, especially in the institution. They don't feel that they can really open themselves up to their fellow inmates. I asked one guy something about the friendships that he had, and he said, I have prison friends. And he made it clear that they help one another to get through this experience, but the minute they walk out the door, he's no longer my friend. So there's not a lot of trust. So a big part of our ministry begins with building trust. And then as the mentoring goes on, we get deeper and deeper into issues. And, you know, on the subject of being able to talk, my wife, actually, the way we got into it was, and Tom told you about our history together, and he said, well, he was going to lead this weekend, and would I, you know, come and help on the weekend and help train table leaders. Well, you know what, when I retired in 2008, and I used to pray, okay, Lord, I'm available, you know, here I am, Lord, use me as you will. Well, nothing came along. And then my wife and I began to babysit our grandchildren 3 days a week for about 8 or 9 hours. And I thought, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And then Tom said, well, I'm leading this weekend. Would you come and just help train the table leaders? I said, fine, but I'm not mentoring. And he said, that's all right, just come. And so then we had a team meeting, and my wife said, well, why did you go get your degree in counseling if you're not going to mentor? Well, she never tells me this stuff. She's usually telling me, back off, and here she is saying, you need to get a bigger commitment here. Well, what was I going to say? Tom, I'm going to mentor. So, but she wasn't going to mentor. She wanted me to mentor, but she didn't want to. So Tom, being the leader, had too much to do on the weekend, and he said to my wife, Josie, would you guide the fellow I'm going to mentor? And at the end of the weekend, I will become his mentor. And she said, sure. So we knew him as Anthony, and then about the time that Tom was done, and he had to substitute for some people who couldn't get clearance to come in and mentor. About the time he wanted to start mentoring Anthony, Josie said, you're not taking my Anthony. You know, the woman who was not going to mentor now had her Anthony. I think he could probably replace me if you know. But she asked him one time, what do you get out of this? And he says, somebody I can talk to. I can't talk to these people here. So the trust level is very, very low inside the institution. And you know, we talk about visits. The young man that I mentored, his father was in prison. His mother is an addict. And when I went in and saw him and mentored him, I was the only visitor he's ever had. And that's not an uncommon thing, as Tom said. And, you know, just to show a little bit of the changes we might see in these young men as we mentor, there was a time when part of the curriculum, the question I asked him was, what do you fear most about your life? And he said, that I'll spend the rest of my life in prison. So we started talking about that. And he had a substance abuse problem. And you know, we talked about, really the first thing he had to do was he had to lick that problem, that addiction. Because, you know, he said, well, I can go live with my uncle in Texas, but, you know, if you're an addict, you'll hit Texas and within about an hour, you'll know where every drug dealer is on the street. And he knew that. And so I was really, I felt so bad for him and hurt for him that was his fear, that he'd spend the rest of his life in prison. But as the mentoring continued, he actually got transferred before our 6 months was up. But near the end there, he was starting to talk about ways that he could not spend the rest of his life in prison. And I felt really good about that there had been some growth, some change of mind and heart, that he was looking for ways to live a productive life and not spend his life in prison. And there are a myriad of stories of these young men. The strongest statement that we make is we show up every Monday or every Thursday, whichever day of the week, we mentor. Because that is well, I'll tell you, I can probably sum it up this way. I was talking to one of the young men, and we were talking about the program and you know, what he thought of it, and he says, well, I'll tell you, we have a lot of groups that come through here, and they give us a little food, and they say, we'll pray for you, and they leave and we never see them again. But you come back every week, and some of you come a big distance, and you pay for your own gas, and we know you care for us. And that was about the best thing I could hear from that young man. So that's our ministry. It's a weekend followed up by 6 months of one-on-one mentoring. The facility again is Chad in Stockton, and if you've got a minute to throw a prayer to the Lord for our ministry this weekend, our weekend, we would really appreciate it. And I thank you very much for allowing us to be here.
So this is called put your money where your mouth is. And not money, actually. Put your prayer where your mouth is. We take these little strips, if I can get them out of here, I'm not sure I can. We take these little strips and we ask people to pray sometime during the weekend. Pray for an hour, pray for 10 minutes, whatever your knees will take. I know what mine will take, not much. But we then take those prayer strips that have like a name and Wednesday or Saturday at 10 o'clock, and we make a chain out of them. Well, let me tell you,
Prayer chain.
a prayer chain. So we convert your prayer into a link of a chain, and for 2 weekends now, we have surrounded the gymnasium with prayer chains. And I'm talking a gymnasium, because we do it in one section of it, but we go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And to see the look on the face of a young man when we bring out, we cheat, we know that. We come out with a 6-foot length of that chain, and we go up and place it around their shoulders while they're sitting at the table and say, they're praying for you. These kids look at every link of that chain. Then we take the chain links from, stop crying, you're killing me. We take the chain links, hook them all together, put them together with the bags full of them that we have, and just start circling the room and taping them up on the walls. So if you ever make it to a closing, you will come into a place that is like transformed. It's not a prison. It's not even a gym anymore. It's a gigantic place of listen, listen, love, love. So that's just one of the things that we do. We also, we raise money because we have to, because there's nobody's paying us to do this. We're using our own gas to get there. We got carpools. We have like 2 carpools leaving from San Ramon out in the park, or Dublin out in the parking lot. Every Monday, every Thursday, there's a carpool taking off for Stockton. Our longest driver came from Petaluma every week, and he's done that for a year. 2.5 to 3 hours to get there. Mentor for an hour, turn around and drive back. Is it difficult? Yes. It's a tough trip out there. Let me tell you, it is.
Going
but you know
to
what?
Stockton,
We have formed a community there. As we come out of mentoring, 8 or 9 of us on a Thursday night will go off and eat at Panera's or something and talk about what's going on. You come back home and the drive home is nothing. Bam, you're there. But we also solicit donations for meal tickets. And when a young man comes to his table, his plate's here, we put several meal tickets down in front of him where people have sponsored him for that meal. So we ask for like a $10 donation per ticket. We also give them a Bible that was written for inmates and at about a 3rd grade level, to be sure that it's understandable. It is so thick because the words aren't real big. There's lots of little ones in there. Those are the ways that we do things. We don't ask the team to pay anything. I made that a personal challenge. I've hated that idea. Curcio teams, Kairos teams have done it for years. I'm going, now this sounds really good. Now you're telling me I'm going to go work a 3.5-day weekend someplace, and I got to either sleep in the floor of a gymnasium or go get a hotel room, and I got to give you $150 besides? I don't like that. So I took that upon myself as a goal for Torch. We're never going to ask a team member for money. Just not going to do it. Because it's worked out. God has been generous. We've been able to generate the money that we need. We've had several restaurants in town in Stockton who literally donated the meals. One restaurant has given us 2 weekends in a row. This time I said, I don't want to ask you for money. I don't want to ask you for free. How much would you charge me? $3 a person for a 100 people tamale lunch. Wow. Homemade tamales. We have people donating pizzas. We got all kinds of stuff. We do a birthday cake on the weekend because some of these kids have never had a birthday party. We do a birthday cake, bring out a huge Costco sheet cake. We have a decorator over in San Ramon who's really tuned in on it. She can duplicate the Torch logo just like a champ. And then we put their names on a little flag on a stick and cut the piece of cake for them, and shows up in front of them with their name on it. So lots of ways that the community gets involved. Team is very important, because here's the key. However many mentors we get is how many young men will go on the weekend. We're on our 3rd weekend. We've had 37 guys so far. 21 this time. So we're now at 58. The whole institution only has 220 people in it. And it's amazing. I mean, they're a little city in there, you know, just a little town, and we are in the hood. We are in the neighborhood. So I got a ton of stuff over here, information and things. We'll just put it up on the table. People can get it. We have a sign-in sheet if you're interested in hearing more or being part of it or doing anything, any phase of it. Put your name and email and address and all that stuff down. We'll contact you. We never sell the list, and we are not emailers that just beat you to death. You'll be given opportunities to be a part of it, be involved. Bob is already recruiting for team. We want to get at least every team to have a third new people in it, because that's how we grow. And believe me, if you know folks in the Stockton area, and you say, well, you know, I can't drive because really I live over in San Francisco, but you know what, my aunt is over there, I'm gonna go hit her up. See if we can't talk her into it, or her husband, or whatever. Uncles, whatever. They have to be at least 10 years older than the oldest possible person. So 33 for women, over 33. And for men, it would be 5 years older. So 28, 29 years old. We can take folks that young. And we do a complete training system. I'm the head of volunteer coordinating, so I get to help you get through the process of becoming a badged person at CHAD, which takes a little bit of doing. I'm not going to fib to you. It takes a little doing. But we do background checks like crazy because we're dealing with kids, and we have to be safe. How many teachers in here? Any teachers in this room? There's some, I know. You got to go through everything. You really do, don't you? But that's the deal. We are dealing with kids. So, questions? I guess. You can't tell I'm excited about this. I'm working way down the food chain, from adult prisons to you.
I would like to know how did you get the name Kairos?
How did we get the name Kairos? Okay, Chronos is a watch. Kairos means God's special time. These old guys in Florida, 1973 or 4, thought it up. God's special time. Yes, ma'am.
Are you also serving the Boy Scouts, something like was even receiving letter asking to donate? So I don't know how they get our name, and so I'm like very interested, and I feel like, especially I meet some young men when I was teaching. Teenagers have so
You
many
mean Boys
problems.
Town?
No, yeah, they have that also. Are you working with them also?
No. We only go into prisons. That's it. They're all going to get out, by the way. 95% are going to get out. Where are they going to live? Right next door to you and me. I want them a little healthier. Yes, sir, it's in here.
So they have a presence in the Philippines? Kairos, do you have Kairos?
You know, we don't have Kairos in the Philippines. And it's a function of people. It's a function of a person who could do this. Kairos would fly well in the Philippines. You got a big population. You got prisons, right?
Yeah.
It could be done, but it takes the right person. I'll tell you, I've been working on getting Torch into that prison in California since 2004. It took me that long to get it done. And all of a sudden, they just opened the gates and said, come on down. They love us. Yes, sir.
How do you go in there? Do you go in there as Catholics, non-denominational?
No, well, okay, we are interdenominational. In other words, we got Catholics, we got Lutherans, we got Methodists, we got the Foursquare Church on the corner. It's a little bit of everything. What we do leave at our basic premise is the love of Jesus Christ. That's what we bring in. Our common area is what we bring in. We don't do, well, for example, Catholics, we don't do a rosary. For some of the Protestants, they might want to do an altar call. We don't do an altar call. We just stay right smack in the middle. You are your own book, right, that they get to read. You can say, well, I'm a Catholic, but you're not in there saying, I'm going to make you a Catholic, because we don't do that. We tell them right up front of the weekend, we're not here to make anything out of you, make you do anything you don't want to do. Because honestly, we're the Bible. We're Jesus in skin. They get to see who we are and say, wow, that's really attractive. Can you tell me more about that? We have a Catholic deacon is the chaplain there. We also have a Baptist minister chaplain there. So we lead them to the chaplains for that further work and thought. But we are an interdenominational team. They can't believe it, that we can all come in from all different walks, all different denominations, and we get along. How funny is that? I like it a lot. Back there, sir, and then I'll get over here.
Aside of saying Jesus Christ loves you, do you have a program that can help those inmates to be released? Because some of those inmates are innocents.
I understand that.
Victims of poverty.
The best we can give them is prayer. We do not get political. If we get political, our 501c3 goes right out the window. 501 nonprofit status. Actually, Kairos has a really interesting status amongst all the ministries and things that are out there. We have the same status as a church, which is interesting to me. I don't know how they get that, but they got it. So that's what we do. We don't get in there and we don't let them just complain about the institution, complain about this, complain about that. We don't buy into that. So we model good behavior. And we model that, you know, there is a better way than what's been going on in here. And it's full of gangs, let me tell you, it's full of gangs. But we also can say, you know, let's see now, you're 17 years old, you have a 1-year-old child, your mother, your child and her mama had to run because you are a 4th generation cartel. And she had to get away. Do you love that child? Yes. Do you love that girl? Yes. You got one chance when you get out of here. You run as far and fast as you can. Because if you stay here, you're done. Same stuff. Yes, sir.
You must have heard my summation.
I did.
I had a chance to serve at the juvenile hall, but I didn't.
On Bryant Street?
I was competent to handle the clients there. And then, of course, there was the psychiatry hospital. I didn't feel I was competent to handle the patients there. But we were trained only to be in the hospital as chaplain. So my question is, if we want to volunteer, you mentioned the right person for this. What kind of training do you give or do you need to be?
Okay, we do, as I said, 36 hours of training. And that includes how you conduct yourself inside an institution. What are the do's and the don'ts? Part of your entry into that includes the big book. It includes an orientation to the institution. You are fingerprinted, which is just a clearance thing, right? It takes a long time to get that done once you do it. But we train you on how to act and how to behave as a volunteer in the institution. We're not there to be their psychologists. These kids, believe me, this place, I'm like totally impressed. The staff in there that we've met have been fantastic. They really have the heart of these kids right here in front of them. And I've been to juvenile hall, and it's a mess. It's a real mess. The guys, many of the guys have stayed in juvenile halls on their way to this place, and they said, man, am I glad I'm out of that place. It's crazy. So there's a lot of structure for them. They have a full high school program. They can get a high school diploma or they can get a GED. They have substance abuse programs. They have counseling on addiction. They have counseling on impulse control. They have a lot of counseling in that place. We aren't there to do counseling. We're there to share the Word of God in our program and to share our own, not without fault, but our own life that's doing pretty good. You know, we're not in prison. We have had volunteers who have been, but they're great volunteers because they come out and, you know, now they've been clean and sober and off parole for a long time, and all of a sudden they can go in and they can talk to these kids like nobody else can. So we're not there to really psych them out or get into those problems. Yes, sir.
Does the Kairos ministry has penetrated the Pelican Bay State Prison?
You know, I went up to Pelican Bay in 2000 and talked to them. And our problem there was one of volunteers. It is in the boonies. Most of their church volunteers come there from Brookings, Oregon. instead of, it's just way out there. It's out in the middle of nothing. And it's a very difficult place. I knew there was a problem when I heard about some of the wars that the Protestant chaplain and the Catholic chaplain were having. That was part of the issue. And then when one of his volunteers was there, we had 3 Catholic priests that had agreed to come on the team. And when this guy goes, now tell me about that Catholic priest, is he saved? I went, oh no, I got a problem here. So we kind of gave up. I mean, we just couldn't get enough energy generated to do that. But we've done some tough places. Folsom was a tough place. Very tough place.
Thank you.
You bet. Anybody else? I got tons of literature too. If you want to take some home, let it cook a little bit on your table, put it under your pillow at night, and you'll be calling, Tom, Tom, Bob. Yes, sir.
Yes, can you describe the organizational hierarchy of Kairos?
Sure. Kairos, this is amazing.
Should I open this back?
Sure. Pass the stuff out if you want. That's fine. There's tons of it there. All kinds of different things. Kairos is a nonprofit. It was founded in 1975. It has 20 to 25,000 volunteers at any one point in time. There are 10 paid staff, period. That's it. They don't pay anybody. My wife worked for them and retired there after 20-something years. They don't pay anybody very much anyway. So it's really low in administration cost. But we have, for example, the state of, let's explain the state of California. We're very much like every place else. There are 17 institutions here. There are 5 Kairos Outside programs. There's 1 here in Northern California, and there's 4 sprinkled out in Southern California. Each one of those sends a couple, 3 people to a state committee. That state committee takes care of the affairs and the business of Kairos. They then have representation on the international board. They have a group there, about 60 people, with a couple of people from every state that Kairos is in. And then they have a board of directors, 12, 13 people, who take care of the policies of the ministry, and lots of different committees dealing with various and sundry things. They're in the process of rewriting and working on part of the Kairos Torch manual, for example. We have a complete manual, by the way, that if you went in the midnight reading, you can read all this stuff and you will be a torch official. It's got everything. Nothing is secret. There's nothing crazy about it. It's just got a lot of really great information on how-to in there. It was designed, we tried to design it to where somebody who'd never seen it for seal, never experienced that, can pick this up and go, yeah, I can do this. So that's what happens. Every team member gets a manual. Again, no charge. We raise the, I'll raise the money to do it if I have to. And you're walking on me, so I think I must be having.
May I just say one more thing?
Yeah.
As Tom mentioned previously,
Anybody wants to pray?
I was gonna,
Got any prayers out there?
okay, sure. I'm going to be leading Torch 4, and it's going to begin April 29 and end May 1st of next year. We've had a lot of people come up to us and say, you know, I heard about that, and it kind of was speaking to me, but I pushed it aside, and then I heard it again, and it was coming at me stronger, and now I'm ready to participate. Don't know that that's going to be any of you, but if you have questions, if you have any interest at all in being a bigger part of it, in the sense that you would go into the institution, go in Friday with us, and Annie, Willie, Jeffrey, and Narissa. They all have contact information for me, for Tom, and for other people on our team. So don't hesitate at all to call any of us, please. Thank you.
So, do we have volunteers signing up?
I have the sheet here for whoever wants to volunteer, or at least for us to give you a call. We can discuss it further. It's not like signing your life already, but we will make you sign your
But I
life.
think at least the prayers would be really good this time. Did you all get that band? That's a real nice thing to do too.
Those are like palancas.
Those are like palancas. Just listen. Any more questions?
And we have donations.
You want to donate?
If you want to donate for meals for the kids, it's just $10 per
each young.
If you want, but we're doing something. Yes.
Well, the prayers you can do, or no, I think we should do it now and leave it to Nerissa.
Put your name and your city, right? Just no last name.
Yeah. First name and city.
First name and city, but make sure you pray, okay?
So, in behalf of the School of Leaders, Filipino Corsilio community, we'd like to thank Tom and Bob for sharing with us their experiences, their expertise, their knowledge, and more importantly, how they have share their compassion and care, and what we can do also in turn. We can also do what they're doing. It may take years, but at least we can start with the prayers. So it's nice that do a little something. It doesn't have to be a big thing.
Yeah, discern.
Yeah, but it would be good if like a few of us at least would volunteer.
Yes, can I say something quickly? You know, fear is the greatest obstacle, I think, here. It's the fear of the unknown. I mean, example, our Sister Annie and Brother Willie, and again, Jeffrey. Sister Annie was so scared, you know. She kept going to the car like 4 times before we walk into the chat. It was her first time. Last week, was it last week?
Yep.
And when she's ready to go, she wants to take one home. So I said, no.
And I told her she can't do that.
So, but you know, these boys are like our children. They're not thug looking.
They're also girls, right?
No, only boys.
Oh, only boys.
You
Yeah.
see, that's why I'm there.
Yeah, to act like their grandma. Okay,
But
again,
you know.
yeah, we thank them, and okay, you can pass on to Nerissa the prayers and whatever you want to give if you want to. Okay, let's give them a very big hand. Thank you very much.
I will just list down these things when we get them. Okay. You don't have
Okay,
that strips anymore, yes?
first.